So now that President Trump got his ass handed to him on the Muslim ban and on Obamacare, he's going to go for a layup here and try to do something which should be easy. So Vice President Mike Pence said this weekend that the next priority is tax reform. Pence gave some specifics. He said that Trump wants to cut the corporate tax to 15% from what it is right now, 35%. And his reasoning was he wants to spur investment. So the House Republicans are actually working on legislation at the moment to cut it to 20%. So there's a little, I guess there's a little bit of disagreement in terms of what's possible and what the right rate is, but they're looking at going from 35% nominal rate to 20% or 15% nominal rate. Now, let me go ahead and give you some facts on this so that you understand just how misleading this entire debate is. When you mention a 35% corporate tax rate, oftentimes you'll hear common talking point on the right, whether it's like on CNBC in the business community or whether it's on Fox News or just standard Republican circles. They'll say, man, 35% so damn high, it's one of the highest rates in the world, one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world. Now, that actually is true. The 35% rate is one of the highest rates in the world. But again, massively misleading. Why? Because that's what's called the nominal rate. The nominal rate is just what the rate is on paper. That's not what these corporations are actually paying. So the rate that matters is what's called the effective tax rate. That's the rate that you actually end up paying. And when you look at the effective corporate tax rate in the U.S., it's about 12%. So 35% on paper, about 12% in real life. But because it's a higher nominal rate, there's all these garbage talking points out there filling the airwaves about how, oh my God, our poor multinational corporations that make billions and billions of dollars in profit, when will they get a break? They're such victims. They face such severe discrimination. Leave the multinational corporations alone. So, that's disgusting. And again, that's basically so misleading as to be a lie. I mean, I guess some of the people talking about this stuff are just super duper ignorant and they don't know that. And they're like corporate puppets and tools and they've been misled. But they're either ignorant or stupid, the people who bring up that talk point. There's no other option. You're either ignorant because you don't know all the actual facts, but you're talking about this, or you're stupid. And you think, well, ignorant, stupid, or lying too. There's another option. Ignorant, stupid, lying. if you push this propaganda on the corporate tax rate. So, but it's even worse than that because they're trying to cut it from the 35% rate that it isn't to 15% or to 20%. Now you say, well, Kyle, hold on. If they're paying about 12% now, which is the effective rate, well, then wouldn't that be better for them to change the rate to 15% or 20%? Because then you're actually increasing taxes on the corporations. Well, the answer to that is also no, because what they'll do is leave the fucking loopholes that they still have right now, which makes it so that it was 35%, the nominal rate, but they paid 12%. So it might be, for example, they cut it to 20%, but with all the fucking loopholes and deductions, they pay 8%. Or it could be they cut it to 15%, the nominal rate to 15%, but with all the loopholes and deductions, they end up paying 5% on average. So, and even if, here's the other thing. So even if they try to do the reform and also say, pay lip service to, we're going to get rid of all the loopholes and deductions too. Usually, number one, they don't do that. They'll just pay lip service to it, but not actually do it in the final bill. Or they'll get rid of some loopholes and deductions, but not nearly enough. And then later on, they just sneak them back in there. Because all you have to do is add that as as an amendment to a bill that's obscure on some other issue, and nobody bats an eyelash because they're all serving their corporate donors anyway, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans. So again, massively misleading. The rate's not 35%. It's basically, the effective rate is 12%. They want to cut it to 20% or 15%, but they want to leave in the loopholes and just slash that rate down to basically even lower, 5%, 8%, whatever it may be. Now, furthermore, many of the biggest corporations already pay an effective tax rate of 0%. The 12% effective rate is just the average. But when you have a fucking team of lobbyists and attorneys, you can find ways to chisel away at that, chip away at that. And, next thing you know, you're paying a 0% effective tax rate. In fact, some of them, I'm not kidding about this, I know this sounds crazy, some of them have a negative tax rate. So in other words, they get a corporate welfare check every year. So for example, DuPont, the giant company DuPont, they have a negative 11.5% tax rate. Honeywell, and I think this is for the year 2010 or 2011, they have a negative 38.7% tax rate. And my favorite, GE, has a negative 64% tax rate. Oh, good googly moogly. So these multinational corporations get away with anything. When you have the attorneys, when you have the lobbyists, when you've bought the government, when you do your campaign contributions, which are just legal bribes, turns out that's why some of the top corporations have a 0% effective tax rate, or even better than that, they just get a giant welfare check, a negative tax rate. Now, the most important fact of all here I saved for last. In 1952, the corporate tax accounted for 33% of all federal tax revenue. Today, corporate taxes bring in less than 9%, despite record-breaking profits. So think about that. They've shifted the tax burden from the corporations to the middle class, to you, to regular people, regular taxpayers. That's the sick trick that's been played. And again, people will try to obfuscate this or hide this, but those are the facts. When you go back to 1952, corporations paid 33% of all federal taxes. Now they pay less than 9%. So somebody had to make up that difference. You made up that difference. So anytime these Republicans talk about, we're going to cut taxes for middle-class families and cut across the board, that's what they say. But when you look at their actual proposals, when you get into the details of it, they end up cutting taxes for corporations, and they end up cutting taxes for the top 1%. For you, for regular people, you get your taxes raised. And by the way, further evidence of this, what did Trump do on day one in office? On day one in office, his first move as president was to sign an executive order that gets rid of a tax break for first-time home buyers. So he effectively raised taxes on the middle class as his first act as president. So he's not talking about you. They are not talking about you when they talk about cutting taxes. Understand that fully because it's very, very important. I think that happens to be one of the main arguments that the Republicans push that gets them some middle-class votes when they say, I just want to cut your taxes. That's all I care about. I just want to cut your taxes and give you more of your own money. Well, who's going to say no to that? What middle-class person is going to say, no, here, I want the government to have more of my money? So that's an argument that resonates. But they're lying to you because they talk about, even in this article, the Republican priority now is cutting taxes. But then you go on and read the details and you find out, they're actually just talking about corporate taxes in this case. So they're talking about cutting taxes for the rich and corporations. They're not talking about it for the middle class. They're going to raise taxes on the middle class. And here you have all the information in front of you. You already know that corporations are paying less than they were in the past. They've shifted the burden onto you. And now they want to shift even more of it onto you. And the Republicans are like, yes, I can't wait. Because the Republicans are taking campaign contributions from those corporations so they do their bidding and they stab their constituents in the back. That's exactly what's happening here.